Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we are live. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mufti Sahib.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Umar, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Excellent.
So this is our first video together.
It is. It's strange because obviously we talk quite often. So we're going to keep this quite relaxed. It's going to be as normal as possible. Obviously, knowing that lights, action, camera on us.
Yeah, definitely. I've kept my hat on because it's cold outside. Alhamdulillah.
Excellent.
So we're going to talk a little bit about where we are in our journey, our 21-year, 22-year journey that started separately, and now over the past 2 or 3 years it's merged, and what we're doing together.
Bilkul. Yeah, I think as an intro, I think that's very useful for those who haven't been following. Just a quickie from my side then. Go back, world of science, going back nearly 3 decades, actually, maybe even a little bit longer. So world of science, and then science into education, education into academia, also at the same time into kind of more Sharia, yani alamiya, iftar, and then moving into sort of the business world, because initially, due to Sharia compliance, that was my kind of way in. But then now, over the last sort of 3-4 years, sort of on a number of projects that you and I have been thinking about, and obviously now, alhamdulillah, we brought about.
Yeah. So from scientist to scholar.
Yeah, SS.
SS.
Yeah, many people always say, don't they, that how can you balance those two kind of what seem to be like worlds which should pull you apart?
Yeah.
A man of science is a rational man. He doesn't believe in things, and sadly, the way certain society is that do we really believe in fairies? Do you believe in flying horses? Do you believe in trees in the sky? And they try to kind of ridicule it just to sort of make you feel as silly. And if you did say yes, I do. And then you've got obviously this world of reason, rationalize, prove, evidence, and all the rest of it. So some people do say, how don't you find a contradiction? But alhamdulillah, there's no contradiction there whatsoever, because where science stops, that's where faith starts.
That's fascinating. And we've had a lot of fascinating conversations around this.
We have that over the years, alhamdulillah, because when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions repeatedly throughout the Quran that look to the skies, أَفَلَا يَنْزُرُونَ لِلْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ, look to the camel, do you not see how it was created? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want us to believe blindly or be led to belief in him blindly. He wants us to reach to that with conviction, so that we are, as we say, when we were chatting earlier, joking about, ayn al-yaqeen and ilm al-yaqeen. Yani, ilm al-yaqeen is one thing, but he actually wants us to progress through the journey and actually believe, because when we see, for example, the unique nature of the camel, how it was created and how it can survive in such difficult terrains and difficult circumstances, in a desert. But similarly, some of the images you shared, Yani, the way we had the Hubble telescope, and now this new telescope which literally blows the Hubble telescope out of the park, and they're showing this tiny little 1 centimeter square image and saying that there's X number of million stars or billion stars in there and galaxies and whatever, and then you just kind of think, it's just mind-blowing, isn't it? So when you start to see things like that, that leads you to belief in Allah. It doesn't necessarily lead you to say, that means I don't believe in Allah. Actually, you think that, subhanallah, all this makhluqat, all this, and if we're gonna, what's the alternative? And then you hear the alternative, isn't it? Oh, well, survival of the fittest, mutations, chance. As long as you leave something for long enough, then things will happen. But we know that's not, that's not an answer, really, is it? So the only answer that you can accept is that there's a Khaliq, there's a creator.
Yeah, definitely. And we've had these deep-rooted conversations in relation to how we, as in the Western world, as 3rd generation, 4th generation Muslims, are trying to find this fusion of what we've learned as in the academic, systematic side of our life, and then our faith side. where we
Yeah.
invest.
And sometimes, because you mentioned the immigration question, or the immigration point, and we are economic migrants. So many of our parents have come from sort of low literacy, tend to be sort of village backgrounds. So we were probably raised on a lot of, kind of a little bit of hocus pocus, make believe sort of thing. So when we did go to school, and when we did start learning things, and we started thinking, hold on a second, we're getting told this, and we're seeing this. Similarly, even when we started to learn our deen, sometimes we were being taught by people who may not necessarily be that sort of, clued up on the scientific world, that sort of clued up on. So sometimes we did find this kind of little contradiction happening in our minds, and this is where the huge identity crisis came, didn't it? That, what am I? Am I, Pakistani, Bengali, English? Is it wrong for me to say I'm English? Do I feel like I've dissed my people by saying I'm English? If I am Pakistani, then how come I don't feel like a Pakistani when I'm in Pakistan, or when I meet people who, and then you got this kind of the disenfranchised youth as a result of that, because you got all these youngsters then kind of not belonging here, not belonging there, and trying to find their own identity. And sometimes that identity then is borrowed from the African American community, who also felt a little bit alienated and disenfranchised. And then the street life comes in, and they make their own society.
No, definitely. That was because we hear those things of Guy Fawkes bonfire night. It just come to my mind then, and you say no, it wasn't. It was, and they're taking it way back. It was when the burnt Ibrahim alayhi salam, or when they burnt prophets, and you're thinking, hold on, in school we're taught about Guy Fawkes with facts and figures. You're telling me about stories that does it actually, even though there could be some hidden truth in that, there's no facts, is there? It's
no.
This, and can you remember the good old days? Why do we read namaz? Because we said so.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. So because it wasn't, we were kind of, in a way, it was just accept as it is. But, we were going to educational establishments where we were asked to be curious. We were asked to question. We were asked to investigate. And then we were sort of in another environment where those sorts of things were sort of not taboo, but kind of frowned upon, something that we don't do. This is wrong, whatever. But that's not really the right way about it. Alhamdulillah, we're very fortunate now. We have many UK-based, Western-based ulama that have obviously born and raised here, and they have a completely different dialogue with their students compared to, say, you and I would have had, going back 40 odd years, nearly 50 years, where we would have been in students, and therefore we would have been told, you don't ask that kind of question, this is wrong, whatever. Now there's a much more open environment, and the answers are there as well. You see, Islam can answer those kind of questions, which maybe the ulama, or maybe because many of them weren't necessarily ulama, they were just the street elder. I remember one of the first masjids I went to, or madrasa I went to, was they didn't have an ustad. They were just the street elder. He was just the eldest guy with the longest beard, so he became everyone's ustad. But then time moves on, and alhamdulillah, we managed to get some good quality ustads coming over. And then and then as we grow up, then we're sort of giving. So then that alienation thing starts to disappear, and you start to feel comfortable in your own kind of skin, in your own environment, and being able to, and you get very confident in being able to debate things, whether it's evolution or whatever it might be, materialism, you can start to debate those with confidence.
Yeah. And so moving on to going from scientist to scholar, or us as a community evolving to where we are within second, third generation. And we've discussed that we own, all credit goes to our predecessors, our forefathers that helped establish these communities for us. And we cannot look at that in a derogatory light, right?
Absolutely. Just today, in fact, funnily enough, one of my students who's based in the Netherlands just reached out to me. We haven't talked for quite a while, and we just shared salam and du'as and how things are. And, he was very happy with what we're doing in RG Group and RG Advisory. And he says, Mufti, it's like when as economic migrants, our first maqsad was, he's a born Dutch indigenous, he's a convert to Islam. And he says, the needs were the necessities, the masjid, the madrasa, the maktab, religious needs. And then it went to food, halal, we've got to make sure it's halal. And then it moved to other areas, and slowly we've progressed generation by generation. Education, then the Darul Ulooms, the madrasas came as well. The Islamic schools then came later. So there's always been a generation that's brought something to the community to make sure that we keep our Muslim identity in the environment we find ourselves in. Similarly, we see with RG Advisory in particular, we've seen that, hold on a second here, there's so much, we're an entrepreneurial community. There's a lot of business we do. Are we doing business properly? And that's really where, you know, this kind of first conversation started, going back several months, if not years, and how we've sort of moved along with that.
Yeah, and I think I was talking about these. When did we have our scholars on social media before, right? It's only been a couple of years now where you have the likes of Mufti Menk, you have the likes of so many scholars out there who have started to address issues on social media that wasn't behind closed doors, that didn't have to stay under the carpet and kept within communities. We've become a lot more integrated into society now. We have our businesses are now, we've hit mainstream within the Asian or the Muslim community has hit the mainstream. There's companies that are now first generation unicorns. There are people in high levels of politics. There are people in high levels of business. There are people in high levels of education. And the naturalization of those societies are starting to merge, and the emergence of where we hold the value or where our value propositions are to adding value to the UK or to the Western world is starting to become a lot more clearer, right?
That's right. It's the maturity of the community. You know, when the community starts, you know, you look at your immediate needs, don't you? What do we need? And because of obviously the environment we grew up in, obviously you're roughly the same age as me, and we know that racism was rife, you know, back in the 70s and 80s. You know, we can now show we can share a story or two of what happened, what we experienced, what we went through. You know, ointment, combat 18, NF. These were words, you know, we used to hear because I lived not too far away from the Bradford City football ground. So literally on a Saturday, you know, on the bottom of our street, there'd be hordes of football fans. Obviously, when you see brown-skinned people in the 70s and 80s, it was something really unique. So, you know, we were targeted, and then obviously the schools we went into, and then, you know, even in work, we were in places where we might have been. I remember when I first started as a research scientist, I was one of the only few brown-skinned people there. You know, it was a white absolute. So it's natural to be inner focused, internally focused, and meet your own needs. But as we've become more accepted by the wider community, maybe those fear factors have gone, legislation's come in to protect minorities. You've seen us grow, and I think that's when a minority feels confident that it is seen as an asset, it's not seen as a problem, then you start to see it given to the community. So now you'll see a lot going on, whether it's on the kind of philanthropical area of how much the communities give back to, you know, especially in the kind of crisis that we've gone through, and the COVID area where lots of masjids and community centers are opening their doors and providing food for the homeless and for those who are struggling in this kind of economic crisis that's going on, to, like you said, business, where, you know, some of the biggest restaurants now, or those which are highly regarded, are coming from the Asian community. So yeah, it's grown, it's matured over the years.
Yeah, and so this is where our world started to collide, right? In the sense of we are now at a point where we need to create products and services that blend both together. And I think we're bridging that gap where the right intentions were there, the results were there, but just a little bit of gaps. And in the past 3 years that we've seen, as we lifted the lid on quite a few contracts or quite a few companies, that yes, the intentions were absolutely amazing. The results have been great, but in between there's been some sort of a gray area that has been it's been a bit of an oversight within the community, because these are topics that were never needed to be addressed, right?
It is. I think it's the challenges which the businessmen and women have faced, and it's also challenges that maybe the ulama have faced, because it's a very niche area. Is this kind of world, this commercial world? Because when we look at our books that we use to draw answers from, then we only can use principles, because it's a world. 1400 years ago, 1200 years ago, 1000 years ago, 900 years ago, 800 years ago, some of the books that we use. And now we're living in such a fast modern world. The last 10, 20 years has been remarkable, again, showing our age. We remember a time when phones were, wired to the wall, when, TVs were the size of a huge box. And now, it's I'm sure we used to, mum and us used to gather around a tape recorder, and you used to get those TDK C90s, and she'd say, come, talk to your grandmother, and we used to think, like, what's grandmother doing inside, that little box? So the TDK 90 would get recorded, and we're talking to it. And we just didn't get it, like, there's nobody in there. And then that, you'd wait for someone who's going to Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. And when you find that guy, hey, give this to my, relative there, whatever. And now, you got, WhatsApp and things like that, where, so, it's such a fast moving world. But, so therefore it's got its challenges. So we can understand why certain organizations and companies may not have advanced with the good intentions, like you said, may not have advanced as much as they should have done or could have done because of these circumstances. But now, the key thing is the conversation. And I think there's always a fear as well, Umar, is that people always think that, as soon as we start to look at these sorts of things, it's always going to be, a forbidden or whatever. But it's not always the case, because there are plenty of workarounds that exist, and I think that's where we need to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think for anybody that's been listening, or in relation to where we were, we thought this payment processor, and that's one of the first things that we unearthed, that the payment processor was a standard payment processor. There's nothing in relation to being haram. There's no pork or no hidden interests or all these other things. And then passing it over to yourself, suddenly, no. The exterior of it looks clean. But as you've gone through the pages, you realize it's hidden terms. And somebody like myself, you might class yourself as luckily fortunate enough to be educated, or you've had some business acumen. But that business acumen or that education did not mean that you had understanding of the faith terms that are a little bit more deeper, right?
That's right. And that was successful. We didn't get a brick wall to say, sorry, no can do. It was successful, so that showed that with the right kind of motivation, we can be successful. It's like the question that normally gets asked, doesn't it? That somebody in the office will ask that, can I not just pray all my salahs when I come home at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock? And you'll say, no, you can't. You need to pray them on time. And you say, look, just go ask your boss. Oh, I can't ask my boss, whatever. And funny enough, when they go ask the boss actually offers their own office. So sometimes it's our own hesitation. And, recently we had a conversation with an organization that deals in properties. And if you recall, their organization also had 2 clauses in it, which were problematic. Did we get any kind of resistance straight away? We don't really use them. I don't even know why they're there. Good shout. I knew a little bit about that one, but I wasn't aware of the second one. You know what I'm going to do is, don't worry, we're going to remove them. Problem solved. Now, whoever's going to use that contract now, alhamdulillah, the issue's gone. So as I said, sometimes we just kind of make walls and barriers in our own minds without necessarily seeing that in real life. We've not experienced it in real life.
No. But this is where I think, as a first conversation of introducing yourself as scientist to scholar, going from understanding the sciences, understanding how science works, understanding, and please touch upon just a little bit about some of your accolades in the science world.
Well, I started off in the science world. I think it was mainly because of my sort of childhood, where I always wanted to understand how things work. I've always had that curious mind. I've never been I hear about some people who used to break things and then put them back together again. I was never that kind of person. I can break things, alhamdulillah, but putting them back together again, that's somebody else's job. So, I was never one of those people. You get some people, who could break a clock and then manage to put it all back together. You can think, okay, this person's going to be an engineer or something like that. But I always wanted to know kind of intellectually how things work. How do people discover things? That's something that was always there. And this person who's a pioneer takes the world to a place where nobody's been, even though it was always there. But it took this person to take. So these things used to always, enthuse me. And unfortunately, again, the way the world was, they were always white Europeans. You never saw black, brown people doing these sort of things. And that, unfortunately, puts you in a box as well, because you kind of think, okay, that means, I've got no role model. But anyway, that I have a kind of a die-hard philosophy, so that didn't really put me off. And that's the reason why I was always interested in science. I moved into chemistry. Chemistry I preferred out of physics. Didn't really enjoy too much maths. Not too bad, but not too much maths. And biology, I was never into the kind of medical world. So chemistry I took up, and I moved into particularly in polyacrylamide chemistry, polyelectrolytes, polymerization. And alhamdulillah, I've been fortunate in that I was successful in that area. A number of patents that I invented in terms of processes and products. And then as a consequence, very early on, I was moved out of that department and was actually put into a blue sky cutting edge department, which in fact I set up, which was the discovery research department. And that was literally, this is what we were given. You know, in most departments, you're told exactly what to do. It's got a history. We were just given a blank piece of paper. Go do your stuff. Literally, that's what we were told by the board. That, you know, make money, go develop some technology.
I've just got this picture of you as this young scientist who's ready to unearth a lot of things.
It was honestly, it was a dream. You know, it's a dream job. You cannot make it up. And that was the world that I lived in, and that was a world that was very pleasing. And it was only parallel to that I was also studying my Alamiya as well at the same time. And it was during that period where I kind of felt, you know, I want to say that kind of enjoyment started to diminish, and there was a kind of a yearning to kind of move into this educational world, especially now that I finished my Islamic studies, and now to kind of share. And it was also kind of, and that's when I completed my PGCE as well. So I qualified as a teacher, and then I was fortunate again in that world. Whether it was nurseries, primary schools, secondary schools, not only did I, you know, work in them, I founded some, and then, you know, I worked in that kind of sphere, and then it didn't stop. I moved into the world of academia. There I qualified as a lecturer, so I could now lecture in universities, and I set up a department here at the University of Bradford. Similarly, I was working at University of Rotterdam as well. So it was national, international. And so again, opportunities, a lot of research, wrote some books, and so it's, you know, as I said, it's been a laugh, it's been a ball, it's been fun. I've been very fortunate, you know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been very gracious and allowed me to, you know, keep have an enjoyable life.
This is the point we were trying to raise here. So, you know, anybody that's watching the video, it's not that we've put scholars into a box, right? And unfortunately, the box in the lines of the medical world, science world, business world, and then the box when realistically it's a shift, isn't it? That
it is,
and it's the evolution that's going to happen now. And so as people get to know yourself a little bit more, I know that you like to keep yourself behind closed doors for many years. But now as RG Group and RG Advisory, this is something that we've said that unfortunately we have to bring our skills to the table, our experiences to the table, and with the hope that inshallah we can benefit a lot of people, and we can benefit people, young business owners or young entrepreneurs, young Muslims who are trying to find their feet in the mainstream of society, and they can come in with this without any complexes, and they're given that freedom to express themselves and freedom to actually achieve, knowing their boundaries clearly.
Absolutely. You know, I used the word pioneer earlier when describing how I, you know, was kind of motivated by people as a young boy. Similarly, I think this is key. If we can act as role models and as pioneers in this world and set something, you know, then that I think is a very positive move. It gets people confident that, you know, it's worth, and it's difficult. It's going to be difficult because we know there are global factors. I mean, the world has been working in a certain way for a long time, and things take time. We know even countries have struggled to make headway in certain things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we sort of give up the ghost and not do anything. You know, we keep pushing and making those changes.
Yeah. So as a final wrap up, then, if there's anybody out there who's got any questions, I'm sure the people who are roughly our age thinking, oh, I can connect to that. Oh, I can remember that story, whether it was in our communities as such, or younger people who are looking at it from a business point of view, that it's a request to them to like, comment, share, and ask any questions. Right? They can. How can they
Absolutely.
get hold of you?
We want to keep this very casual. We've not absolutely nailed down the format, and this is going to be a regular thing. And we can look at how we interact with people. Maybe once we got this going out as a live, we can even have people putting questions up whilst we're going out on a live, maybe interacting with us a little bit more. So it feels. Or, however, as I said, this is a public service in a sense. We want to reach out to the public. We want to talk to the public. So we're more than happy to do that. But yeah, inshallah, we're hopeful that this is a useful exercise. So absolutely concur with that.
Thank you very much, Mufti Sab. I think you've got a big event happening anyway.
Yes, make dua, inshallah. My youngest daughter graduates, inshallah. So make dua for that Allah accepts her striving over these years and that He utilizes it in the khidmah of Deen.
We shall catch up soon.
Inshallah.
Have a wonderful evening.
And yourself. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. Still recording?